So the other method, and this one, the one we just covered here, this is probably a little bit more practical. It's probably what you're going to do, for an introduction sequence to your game or things like that. It's it's a little bit more reasonable. It's pretty simple. But if you did want to, the key advantage here is if you wanted to do it in a way that you could change it a little bit more interactively, a little bit more dynamically, instead of just, having it like this once and then changing it one time and then, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much all you would use this introductory map here, the tent method 1 map 4. You'd probably even delete these, transfer events and things, because you're not ever going to be leaving this map in the traditional way. But if you didn't want to do it, in an isolated way, or if you wanted to use it in a little bit more interactive fashion, the other way that you can do this, it's a little bit more tedious, but we'll go ahead and take a look at it here, is we can use it through events, and we can use switches like we looked at a little bit in one of the previous videos. So we'll just go ahead and go to new switch. And if you go down to the image, in the image section, if you go down to tileset B, then here we have, all our tent things here. Now, unlike when you're in mapping, you can't click and hold, to select a bunch of things. If you do that, it's not going to work in here. So this is kind of the unfortunate part about it, is that you kind of have to make, in this case, 9 different events to cover everywhere in the tent. But we'll see an easy way to do that here pretty quick. So we'll just hit OK. We'll start with this, bottom left corner. Now, we want this to tie to a switch, whether or not it's appearing. So we'll just go ahead over here and click switch. It says appears when the switch is on. So before we use this rest area NPC appear switch, so we're going to make another switch. We'll just call this tent appears. That's fine. And hit OK. So when the tent appears switch is on, then this is going to be here. And we want the priority to be set to same as characters. That way, if this tent is here, the player cannot, step on top of it and walk all over it. We may change that for this middle one. We could make that one potentially be below characters, and then the player could walk on this one space. That would be okay. So this will only be here when the tent appears switch is on. So that's basically all we need to really worry about for this right now. We'll hit OK. Now, in practice, you're probably not going to use this for a tent. This is, you could, but it would make more sense for a little bit more interactive things, like maybe a gate or a whatever. Like there's some more obvious, useful, practical ways to apply this than just, hey, a tent shows up. But just for the sake of example. So I'm just going to go ahead and Control C, Control V to paste this. Go in here, double click the image, change it to the other image. Now this one, I think we can make this one be below characters. That's okay. Because this would be, out of all the spaces in the tent, this would be the one that would make sense for the player to be able to walk. So we can do that, and we'll just hit OK for that one. Now, one thing you want to be careful with is you don't want to copy this one, because this is the below characters one, so you'd want to copy this one for everything else. So I'm just going to quickly use the arrow keys and Control V on this one to make, all 9. And then this is kind of the part that gets a little tedious, because you have to, this is the downside to doing it this way, is you actually have to go back in and change every single image so it matches up to every single piece of this, map here that you want it to look like. So even this little tiny corner piece right there, you want it to look right so it doesn't look funky on you. So, but once you get through this part, like I said, this is a little bit less practical way to do what we're trying to do, but it does have, I think, a little bit more uses in other applications, that you could put this sort of approach to use. Now, remember, these are all triggering when the tent appear switch is on. So when the player first reaches this, this tent is not going to be here until something happens to switch this switch on, and then it will show up. And you could do all manner of things. You could have it be tied to some other quest line or something or whatever. For our example here, I'm just going to put another event. Right click and go new. And we'll just put this rather ridiculous lever or switch, or yeah, let's do this one of these little red floor lever guys here. So yeah, okay, so this is something else that we haven't really seen too that we're going to be looking at here. So if you look at a character, I'll just pull somebody up here. So their down facing one is at the top, their left facing one, then the right facing one. So we're going to actually use that to make it so that the switch, when the player presses it, it looks like it goes from this position to, from the left to the middle to the right. So we'll do that in a little bit. But for now, we'll just start it with that position. So we want this to be same as characters so that, the player can't walk through it. And then we want the trigger to be action button, so the player has to press the button. And when they do press the button, we're going to say set movement route. And we want to use this event instead of player. So that will modify this event's movement. So it already starts in the down position. So instead of move, normally we've used the move ones, but here we want to use the turn options here. So we're going to go turn left, and then we may want to introduce a weight here, like a very slight one. Let's just do weight. Maybe let's do it 10. See what 10 frames looks like. That might be even. Actually, maybe let's do half that, 5 frames. All right. So I'll turn left, wait 5 frames, turn right, and then and that should be all that we need for that. Wait for completion. We want it to look, pretty smooth, or not smoothness. Well, smooth would be nice, but I was gonna say pretty quick, because we just want it to be like, you're just pulling this lever and it comes over. You don't want it to stall or look, too weird. So when the player presses the button next to, by this thing, it'll turn to the left and then to the right. So it'll go, if you remember, just look again. The people, it'll turn to the left, so it'll go, one down, and then the next row down is to the right. So, so it'll go to the middle position and then the right position. So, and once it's done that, we actually want it to control an actual switch. So, so we'll go back to page 1 here, and we'll do control switches. And then we're going to pick that single switch that we just made a little bit ago, tend to pierce, hit OK, and we're going to turn it on. Now, after that happens, what we're going to want to do is control this switch to where it's in this position. So I'll just show you here. So what we're actually going to want to do is use a self switch. So this is going to be a good, good way of showing you the difference clearly between a self switch and a full, regular switch. So we want to do control self switch, and we'll just pick A. A is fine. Position A, or self switch A, and we'll turn it on. Now we just want to copy this page, because that just because it makes it a little bit faster than having to redo everything from scratch. We're going to paste it in here. So now we have 2 pages that are, of this event. They're exactly the same for the moment. But now we want to make this one be what happens when the self switch A is on. So if you picture from here, we're going to be, turning this switch over, or this lever all the way over to the right, and then it turns on this tent appear switch that we created. So that will make the tent appear on our screen. So after that, the image would be to the right, and all this would be going on. So when that happens, we want this image to actually change to this one, because that's what it would look like after we've moved it. So, it'll go from that to that, basically. And when the self switch A is on, then we want to do the same stuff, same as characters, action button is the trigger. So if the player pulls the switch from this direction, we basically want to do the opposite. So we'll go back in here. I'll just hit space bar to go back and edit. Now instead of turning left and right, so remember left was the middle position of the lever, and down was the one that was on the left. So we want to take out the right, so we could either right click and delete, or you can just hit the delete key on your keyboard and that'll do it too. So turn left again, which would put it back in the middle position. And that's fine, that's what we want. It's still affecting this event. And then wait the same amount of frames, and we may adjust that later or whatever. And then we want it to turn down, if you remember from the from the starting position. The first row on those sprites is when they're facing down. So we'll go ahead and hit OK, and it waits for that to complete. And now the other thing we want to do is hit spacebar on this to edit it, and we want the tent appears switch to turn off. So it's still affecting the same switch, which is what we wanted. And we'll hit OK. And then finally we want to make this self switch go back off too, actually. So we'll hit space on that, and then we'll just change the operation from on to off. We'll hit OK. So you can see pretty clearly the difference here. The self switch part is controlling what this event is doing, and controlling what direction this little image is facing and everything. That part we don't care about, referencing elsewhere in the game. We don't need to know. That's just self-contained to this switch, and it's gonna make it turn, and then it toggles a switch, a full switch, that needs to be used elsewhere in the game, which is by these tent pieces, these tent image parts here that we have for this event. So that's the big difference. It's like, other events in the game can see what full switches are doing. They can't really see what a self switch is doing outside of that single event. So just for testing, we're going to go back in here and put our starting position right in here. And now what should happen with this is we should start the game, and there should be no tent here, but this lever will be here, and when we press the lever, it should move over visually, and then the tent will appear when it's moved over to the right. And then if we press the lever a second time, pull it back towards this left direction, these, the tent that appears with these events should disappear. So go ahead and save our changes, and let's see if we manage to pull that off in the way that we hoped here. So okay, so there's no tent, and there's nothing stopping the player. They can walk there just like normal until they get to the cliff. And then we see this little lever here. So if we walk up to it and we press it, there we go. And we've got our tent. All of a sudden our tent's there. Now we can't walk on the tent except for in this one square that we said was below characters in the priority. So we can walk there, and that's it. And we can't walk behind it or anything like that because we set everything else as same as characters. If you wanted to have the player walk this one square to the right here, so it looks like that, you could have put the event for this particular one as above characters. That way, in case it overlaps a little bit, that it actually goes behind like this. So, but I didn't do that for this example. So what should happen is we should be able to pull this lever again, and the tent disappears now. And now we're back to this. So you can just toggle that on and off all you want. Pull the switch, and that timing on the lever looks okay for the speed of it and everything. 5 frames seems pretty good. It's nice and visible. Does a little weird stutter there at certain times, but I think that's something you could end up getting to work out if you added an extra weight in there. It's what it's doing is it's switching to the page event a little bit more quickly than the game, allows the animation to happen. So sometimes it doesn't look quite so clean, but it's okay. It's just pretty minor. But you get the idea here is that you have this, I guess key event or master event or whatever you want to call it, that triggers, whatever else is going on. So you can use things like this to modify all kinds of things in the game with switches, and that's really the power of, even just a basic switch on and off. All you're doing here is switching one thing on and off, and it's toggling this whole tent that you could potentially access. You could make it so this is a transfer event to another map that the player can't normally get to unless they have something like this happen. Like I said, it'd be a good thing to use for like a gate that's in the way, like, oh, it's closed, and you have to find a switch to, pull the switch, and then the gate opens, and the player can go through. You can do all kinds of different things like that. So that's about all I had for this one today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope that gives you a little bit easier idea of a couple of ways that you can have things on a map that seems identical, and the player maybe wouldn't even know the difference between this and this, but you can control and change how things look just by transferring to a different nearly identical map, or you have even you can even put the control in the player's hands using switches and levers and tents and things like that. So alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next tutorial video.